today. Senator Rob Portman of Ohio is on Fox and Friends. Good morning to you, Senator.
Good morning, Gretchen. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Well, the president has said that your success was not your doing, that the government had a lot to do with it. Let's listen to that.
There are a lot of wealthy, successful Americans who agree with me because they want to give something back. They know they didn't. Look, if you've been successful, you didn't get there on your own. You didn't get there on your own. I'm always struck by people who think, well, it must be because I was just so smart. There are a lot of smart people out there. If you got a business, you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
So if you have a business, somebody else made that happen. That line, I think, is resonating throughout America this morning, and I'm wondering your thoughts on that.
Well, I heard a lot about it in Ohio over the weekend. I was there yesterday with a bunch of small business folks in Lebanon, Ohio, where my grandfather actually started a small business years ago and struggled through the Depression with it. It's still in our family. And what these folks were saying is, look, for a president of the United States to say, if you've got a business, you didn't build it. Someone else made it happen. These are folks, who put in the 7 days a week, who put the second mortgage on their house. My dad started his own business too, and so I grew up in small businesses, and I got to tell you, it shows a fundamental misunderstanding of the American economy.
Yeah, no kidding.
This is the strength of our economy, and
Senator, pardon me. So when people say, Bill Gates, self-made man, Warren Buffett, self-made man, Steve Jobs, self-made businessman, the fine print, according to the President of the United States, is self-made thanks to the government because we got those roads, we got the bridges, the tunnels, the internet, the teachers.
Well, it's no wonder that the president says the private sector is doing fine, and all we need to do is send more money from the taxpayers back to the states so the states can hire more public employees. That's his answer to the economy. And I think it shows that he doesn't get it. He doesn't understand how our economy works. With all due respect to Steve Jobs and all those other folks who made huge successes, there are also millions of Americans out there every day who work very hard in very small businesses just to kind of keep it afloat, to be able to meet payroll. And those folks feel like they built it themselves, believe me. And so that's my concern, is that what this president is doing in terms of policies and has done for 3.5 years, which is more regulations, higher taxes, more borrowing, more spending, policies that make it harder to create a job through his health care policies, his energy policies. This is the reason we're falling behind, and the reason that we have unemployment at levels we haven't seen since the Great Depression, and the reason we're not seeing the kind of economic growth that all of us hope for. So we need a change. We need a president who first gets it, understands that the private sector is what creates jobs and not government.
Well, Senator, you mentioned doing fine. That was a line from last month when President Obama said we're doing fine in the midst of 41 months in a row of unemployment above 8%. Where is he more tone deaf on? We're doing fine, or it's, the government should be taking credit for all its success of small businesses in America?
Well, I think it's both. I think it's a sense that he has that the private sector is doing okay. The problem is we need to add more to government, because the second part of his statement, which hasn't gotten as much play, is he said, look, what we need to do is have Washington send more money back to the states. Now, remember, this is the Washington, D.C. That is going broke, and we can talk about that, but we've got record debts and deficits. Washington is now borrowing over 30 cents for every dollar it spends. This is not sustainable, and the notion is that somehow you can tax small businesses to be able to solve this problem. It just doesn't work that way. You got to give small businesses the ability to create jobs, and that's creating the environment for success and for growth. And that's what Washington's not doing, and he'd like to make it even worse.
Well, one of the buzzwords, together that we've heard in the last year from the Obama administration is fair share. People need to, and it falls into what we were just talking about, actually. Well, now there's a second report that's come out from the Congressional Budget Office, and it gave some startling statistics. In 2008, in both 2008 and 2009, the highest earning 20% of taxpayers paid 94% of the total income tax burden. And I know you like to point this out because it has something to do with the Bush tax cuts in maybe a negative way for those top earners, right?
Well, it does. Look, the president loves to criticize the tax relief from 2001 and 2003, and that report also said something else interesting. The Congressional Budget Office issued 2 reports last week. It also said that when you take into account the effect of the tax relief on the deficit in terms of those high earners the president wants to tax, making over $250,000 a year, it was 4% of the deficit, not taking into account anything to do with the growth that occurred because of that tax relief for a lot of small businesses. So, Yeah, he is somehow trying to get the American people to believe that if you just tax small businesses more, we can solve this deficit and debt problem. And you're right, under the Bush tax cuts, the tax code became more progressive. Before the Bush tax cuts, by the way, it was about 81% for that same group, then 86% right after the tax cuts, and then, as you say, in 2008, 2009, that period, it got over 90%. So there's been a lot of analysis done recently about the president's proposal to raise taxes on small businesses, and bottom line, it's about 1 million small businesses that get hit. About 53% of their income gets hit. And by the way, even if you do that, it runs government for about a week. So it's not the answer to our deficit problems, and it's part of this concern that I have about the direction of the economy under this president. We continue to criticize business. We continue to play class warfare. And this is what's driving investment and jobs and opportunity offshore. We need to get back to making our economy more competitive. And the good news is we got a candidate, Mitt Romney, who wants to do that, knows how to do that, and has got the policies to do it.
All right. Senator Rob Portman from Ohio. Have you heard from Mitt Romney lately?
I have not.
Okay.
I've been watching him.
Checking.
I've been watching him on Fox, though.
Well, we know you're on the short list
yesterday.
for vice president, so we'll keep everyone posted the minute that we hear if your name happens to be
Gretchen,
mentioned.
Call us first.
Great to be with you guys.
All
Thank
right,
you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Straight ahead. Shots